Ended up going to 50 Cent and his production company, and it's kind of the centerpiece.
Sold to them.
Yes, was the centerpiece of the documentary. So watch this particular scene, because this is where a lot of people feel Diddy really screwed over someone that he should be very, very thankful.
It started with the whisper no one wanted to believe, that the clean, polished breakup between Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey wasn't mutual at all, but a hit job orchestrated by Diddy.
It all began with a whisper nobody wanted to accept. Listen to this, that the neat, camera-ready breakup between Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey wasn't mutual at all, but allegedly a calculated move tied back to Diddy himself. We first caught wind of it in those Reddit corners and clubhouse rooms, the same spaces that somehow always know more than they should. And hold up, the deeper we dug, the more the pieces started lining up. Because if the last few months have shown us anything, it's that Diddy does not go down quietly. And when his empire reportedly began trembling under Cassie's lawsuit, the word is the first move he made was reaching straight for his vault. Those so-called infamous tapes he's allegedly been sitting on for years, the kind people are now calling freak-off footage. Girl, the kind that could end careers overnight.
Is 54 years old. Her mother is 5 years older.
So let me set the scene. It's early 2022. Michael B. Jordan is on top of the world with Creed 3, stepping out of the Vanity Fair Oscars after party with Lori Harvey on his arm. They're being crowned Hollywood's golden couple. Big smiles, flawless vibes, perfect angles everywhere. Then, hold up, complete silence. Lori scrubs him from her social media like he never existed. Michael clears his page too, erased like a bad memory. By that weekend, they've unfollowed each other, and Steve Harvey is dropping not-so-subtle hints about being Team Lori 1000%. Back then, we all shrugged and said, okay, standard celebrity breakup. He wanted commitment, she wanted space. But now, listen to this. Insiders claim that behind that clean PR narrative was a private message from Diddy that flipped Michael's life upside down overnight. Allegedly, Diddy sent him a video, disturbing, embarrassing, impossible to forget, involving Lori, filmed during a time when she was still connected to his inner circle, not as revenge, but as a message. That's the part people keep skipping over. This was never about jealousy. It was about power.
Really screwed up, and I'm not referring to his criminal trial, which has him sitting in prison right now, but it has to do with something that happened right before he got arrested. If you've seen the Netflix documentary about Diddy, Diddy The Reckoning, which 50 Cent produced, there's some footage there that had never been seen before. This is a photographer that Diddy hired to follow him around and
Diddy, according to whispers leaking from his own circle, supposedly believed Michael had gotten too cozy with Cassie years back when she was trying to break free. And with the FBI circling, Cassie ready to testify, and half of Hollywood seemingly turning their backs, did he want to make sure nobody from his past suddenly found their courage? The man has always played the leverage game, controlling loyalty, assets, money, and yes, footage. We've heard it straight from former bodyguards, assistants, and even artists. He allegedly records everything. And in Michael's situation, word is he weaponized that vault, sending a freak-off-style tape of Lori directly to her new man. People who spotted Michael courtside days later described him as hollow, not heartbroken, but haunted. Remember those NBA Finals pics? Everyone else grinning, and he's just staring into nothingness. The same guy who weeks before was posting about love and growth. Fans assumed he was just nursing a breakup, but insiders say something shifted that night. His quiet wasn't about moving on, it was about self-preservation. Because once you're caught in Diddy's web, you don't speak unless you want your own skeletons aired.
Reports Sean Diddy Combs is facing new assault allegations. The LA Sheriff's Department says that it's investigating a report from an alleged victim in Florida. That alleged victim has identified himself as music producer Jonathan Hay in social media posts that have since been removed. A spokesperson for Combs has not responded to ABC News.
And here's where it takes a darker turn, because that alleged tape wasn't just some random revenge move. Insiders say it dates back to 2019, around the time Lori was reportedly comforting Diddy after Kim Porter's tragic passing. The public saw it as an innocent friendship. She was spotted with him in New York, Miami, Cabo, then Italy, even with her parents, Steve and Marjorie Harvey, laughing over lunch. Pictures surfaced of Diddy apparently rubbing her stomach, whispering something, and suddenly pregnancy rumors blew up. Rumors Lori's team scrambled to shut down. She denied everything, telling people to stop believing every blog headline they read. But now, with Diddy's empire unraveling over stories exactly like this, that timing and body language look very different. What we're hearing now is the Harveys knew more than they ever admitted. Steve had been tight with Diddy for years, long before Lori became a headline name. He even joined him for dinner during that Italy trip. Fans were already calling him out back then, asking why he stayed quiet while his 22-year-old daughter hung around a 49-year-old mogul with Diddy's history. Steve waved it off, focusing on his festivals, his talk show, and his marriage to Marjorie. But insiders say the Harveys weren't silent out of ignorance. They stayed quiet because fear ran deeper than anyone realized.
Not a lot. They don't want you to say nothing about what's really going on.
No, they want to be quiet.
Jaguar Wright, who's been calling out the industry non-stop this year, didn't mince words. She said the Harveys knew exactly what was happening. In her words, you don't sit at that table and not know. She accused them of playing the same Hollywood game everybody else plays. Look the other way, protect the image, secure the bag. It sounds brutal, but sit with that for a second. Steve's entire brand is built on morality, family values, relationship advice, and sermons about faith and loyalty. So what happens if it comes out that while he was preaching respect, his daughter was being filmed in Diddy sessions? What happens if those rumors about a quiet settlement or a managed pregnancy end up being true? That's not just mess, that's empire-ending damage. And don't forget, all of this was before Cassie's lawsuit. Back then, Diddy still appeared untouchable. He was hosting those infamous white parties, flexing his relationships, sitting courtside like nothing could touch him. But even then, pay attention, the cracks were already there. Former artists had been hinting at dark rooms, uneasy moments, emails talking about sacrifices. When Day 26 broke down on camera this year, describing that eerie message they received from him, people finally started connecting dots. It sounded wild at first, until you realized it lined up with what others had been whispering for years. Those weren't just parties. People were allegedly filmed, manipulated, and controlled with footage they never knew existed. So if Diddy truly had tapes of Lori, and his ex Gina says she personally saw explicit photos on his phone, then sending one to Michael fits perfectly into Diddy's warped sense of control.
Filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible.
This wasn't just about ending a relationship. It was a statement, a reminder to everyone watching that he still held the cards. Even now, from a Brooklyn jail cell, that's the image he wants to broadcast. You can't erase me because I own your secrets. And that's the nightmare Michael stumbled into. He didn't just lose a girlfriend, he got caught in someone else's cleanup operation. He thought he was dating America's sweetheart, the woman who had helped polish his image after years of being accused of only dating white women. Instead, he was pulled into a web of blackmail and silence. Once it hit, the Harveys went full PR mode. Lori wiped him from her socials. Steve dropped his "things happened" speech. Within hours, the story was packaged. Young love, mutual respect, time to move on. Meanwhile, the real narrative was sealed behind NDAs and a video no one was meant to see. Those close to Michael say he never fully bounced back from that shame. The man who once lit up every interview went quiet, stopped smiling, kept his head down. Even his SNL monologue months later, the joke about his first public breakup, landed differently when you knew what really happened. He joked about being in Creed shape and learning a new language. The audience laughed, but watch the clip closely. There's a tension there, a guy masking pain with humor. And this, my friends, is where the story circles back to Diddy's ultimate downfall.
But now there's an added element to this, an added element of drama. Diddy is going to speak. He has some things he wants to say to the judge, to the court, and he has actually filed a request with the judge that he can wear street clothes instead of his prison jumpsuit because he wants to look good for whatever.
Because now that Cassie's case has swung the doors wide open, everyone tied to him is scrambling. Artists are testifying, staff are flipping, and the whispers claim Michael's name has popped up more than once. Not as a plaintiff, but as someone who could confirm timelines Diddy desperately wants buried. That's why the freak-off tape theory landed so hard. This wasn't idle gossip, it was leverage, timed perfectly to keep another Hollywood star in line. The wild part? Steve Harvey's silence back in 2019 almost reads like prophecy now. When fans were calling him out, where was Uncle Steve? Sad that her dad doesn't even care? He ignored it. Maybe he was shielding Lori. Maybe he was shielding himself. Because behind that wholesome family image is a man who's battled lawsuits, scandals, and ex-wife accusations that paint him far from saintly. A man who knows exactly how devastating one secret video could be. And while all of this unfolds, Lori is living like nothing happened. New boyfriend, fresh brand deals, talking about wanting to be recognized for her accomplishments, not her dating life. It's smart, it's distance, but the timing of her comeback, right as Diddy's empire is imploding, is eyebrow-raising, almost like she's staking her claim on the narrative before someone else does. Insiders are already saying she's terrified her name could surface in federal filings tied to Diddy's case, that somewhere on those seized drives, her image might just appear. Because when that footage surfaces, and trust me, it will, every smile, every red carpet moment, every mutual breakup is gonna look like part of the cover-up. And the question everyone is already asking is the one nobody has answered yet. What did Michael B. Jordan really see that night? That's where everything shifts. Because once you understand what was on that tape, you understand why no one, not Lori, not Steve, not even Hollywood's most bankable star, has dared to speak. And what's coming next might finally explain why Diddy's empire isn't the only one about to collapse.
Or in more layman's terms, more likely than not, the measurement we as attorneys typically use for that is 51%. And so for a civil case, you're just saying, hey, is there a 51% chance that Sean Combs allegedly committed these acts? If so, he would be liable. In the federal case, which was criminal, that was proof beyond a reasonable doubt, where he is found guilty of those two counts you mentioned earlier, and is serving a 50-month sentence.
So where does that leave Michael? That's the million-dollar question. Some people say he's sitting on evidence, waiting. Others think he just wants to erase the whole thing from his memory. But those closest to him say that's not true. They say he's been moving quietly, aligning himself with people who want to tear the entire system down, not out of revenge, out of self-protection. Because if he ever speaks up and confirms that Diddy really did send him that footage, it won't just detonate Diddy, it would expose everyone who stayed silent, from the Harveys to the handlers to the A-listers who look the other way. And maybe that's why we're hearing rumblings about a much bigger story on the horizon, the kind that connects Cassie, Lori, and the vault. Because if those freak-off tapes exist, and the raids on Diddy's mansion suggest they might, then everyone who appeared in them becomes a potential witness. Some are terrified, some are furious, and some, like Michael, may feel like they have nothing left to lose. But here's the cold truth about this industry. Silence keeps you alive until it doesn't. And now that the walls are closing in on Diddy, people are realizing protecting him may have been their biggest mistake.
I haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
And here's the part that still doesn't sit right. If Diddy was really trying to protect himself, why would he risk releasing something that could take him down too? That's when we started hearing this wasn't about jealousy at all. It was leverage, a warning shot disguised as humiliation. According to people who once worked closely in his orbit, Diddy was panicking during the build-up to Cassie's lawsuit. He knew exactly who had seen what, who could testify, and who might have footage that backed her claims. Sending Michael that tape wasn't meant to break his heart. It was meant to send a message to anyone even considering opening their mouth. Stay silent or watch your life go up in flames. Insiders say it's the same strategy he's allegedly used for decades. Fear as currency, exposure as the leash. What's wild is how fast everyone connected to that triangle. Lori, Michael, even Steve snapped into total silence. No vague posts, no messy leaks, not even a denial. That's rare in Hollywood, where people write think pieces just to explain and unfollow. That's when whispers started circulating that something much heavier was being handled behind closed doors, like an emergency cleanup ordered by people with money and everything to lose. One longtime publicist claims the calls went out immediately, locked the archives, sealed the devices. Everyone under NDA, because once a video enters the Diddy ecosystem, it never truly disappears. Everyone on the inside knows that. Those files, the so-called freak-off reels, have allegedly been used to destroy careers and force loyalty and keep people from ever testifying. Then the conversation circled back to Lori's situation in 2019. Those Cabo photos where Diddy was rubbing her stomach, that half smile that looked more protective than romantic. At the time, it was brushed off as pregnancy gossip. But now, knowing Diddy's alleged pattern of control and cover-ups, people are wondering if something was quietly handled. The timing fits a little too clean. Months later, Lori resurfaced looking brand new, glowing, traveling, unbothered. No scandal, no shift in lifestyle, no explanation for why her name suddenly vanished from Diddy's orbit. It was like the slate got wiped. Some insiders swear that's when a deal was made. Hushed money, erased footage, one airtight NDA. And if that's true, Steve Harvey's silence suddenly makes a lot more sense. This is a man who built an empire on morality and fatherly wisdom, the relationship guru with the picture-perfect family image. The last thing he could afford was even brushing up against Diddy's world of secret tapes and freak-off allegations. Jaguar Wright has been the loudest voice pushing that angle, openly accusing the Harveys of looking the other way. She said flat out they knew exactly what kind of world Lori was stepping into, that pretending not to see it made them complicit. And the internet ran with it, because let's be real, how does a father famous for preaching standards just shrug off his daughter dating his 50-year-old industry friend? The math never added up. And the deeper we dug, the darker the coincidences became. Former Diddy associates, Day 26, Aubrey O'Day, even Dawn Richard, started telling stories that sound straight out of a nightmare. Hidden cameras, cryptic messages, blackmail dressed up as mentorship. Day 26 claimed they once received an email from Diddy filled with references to sacrifices, language that genuinely made them fear for their lives. And then there's Q's story about waking up in a basement surrounded by cameras, describing it as sacrificial. The pattern feels almost ritualistic. But about Hollywood's obsession with image, control, and silence. A project that could function as a confession without ever naming names. If that happens, the industry could collapse from the inside out. And it's that silence, heavy, deliberate, calculated, that keeps haunting all of this.
Documentary, man, it was just old news, and they took a couple of with the footage from Puff from the days that's leading up him to get arrested, and the incidents with the people from the courts, the two people from the courts. So it was nothing new.
There's also a timeline overlap nobody wants to put under a microscope. Cassie, Lori, and Michael all circling the same man within just a few short years. Same cities, same parties, even the same industry photographers popping up in the background. That overlap isn't random. It's a roadmap showing who mattered to Diddy, who could be leveraged, and who needed to stay quiet. Some insiders claim Diddy kept tabs on Michael even after the breakup, watching him through shared connections, waiting to see if he'd slip up and talk. That's why a lot of people now believe that so-called amicable split was never mutual. It was damage control. We've seen this playbook before. Diddy isolates, intimidates, and manipulates with surgical precision. Cassie's legal team described a loyalty network so intense it erased the line between friendship and fear. Even now, former friends are deleting photos, scrubbing captions, acting like they were never close. And yet, Michael's name never shows up in those cleanup circles, almost like he's been shielded or hidden. Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe someone understands that if he talks, it's not just one man who falls, it's everyone who helped protect him. Lately, with all these documentaries dropping, the Channel 4 expose, the Netflix project tied to 50 Cent, the Hulu deep dive, the gaps are impossible to ignore. Scenes cut to black right before the Harvey connection comes up. The editors carefully dance around certain names, like editors were told exactly what not to touch. We've watched this happen before. The industry protects its chosen families. And if Diddy really held leverage over the Harveys, that could explain why the coverage suddenly stops. Maybe that's why no one in that dynasty has ever been subpoenaed, even though Lori was one of the last major public figures publicly linked to him before the raids. Now we're hearing Michael may not stay silent forever. People close to him say he's angry about how the narrative flipped, that he was painted as the distant boyfriend, while the truth got buried under PR polish. And allegedly, he's kept everything: texts, timelines, maybe even voice memos. There's talk he's considering a documentary of his own, not directly about Diddy.
Control, exploit, discard. So when rumors surface about a tape involving Lori, it doesn't sound far-fetched anymore. It sounds like the continuation of a system finally collapsing under its own secrets. What nobody expected was how visibly Michael B. Jordan changed afterward. He went from Hollywood's golden boy to noticeably withdrawn. No scandals, just that look in his eyes, like something snapped behind the scenes. That courtside appearance, stiff smile, empty stare, was the opposite of his usual presence. The same man who carried greed with fire suddenly looked like someone carrying a secret. Fans thought it was heartbreak, but people close to him say it went much deeper, that he learned something that shattered how he saw fame, loyalty, and the business itself. If he really did see that footage, this isn't just about a breakup, it's about witnessing how powerful men weaponize privacy. And here's where the dominoes really start lining up. Cassie's lawsuit detailed Diddy's obsession with recording private encounters, forcing partners to relive them, keeping every tape locked away in his vault. She described the night where he made her watch a video she thought she'd deleted, reminding her he owned every piece of her. Now imagine Michael sitting with that same kind of evidence, fully aware of what Diddy is capable of. The difference is, Michael wasn't one of Diddy's protégés. He's an A-list actor with his own power, which makes him dangerous. That's why whispers say certain people have been working overtime to keep him focused on work and far away from microphones. Meanwhile, Diddy's empire is crumbling in real time. Federal agents raided his LA and Miami homes, uncovering far more than party footage. Multiple lawsuits, dozens of witnesses, former employees describing hidden rooms and coded language. And yet, certain circles remain untouched. So we have to ask, why do the Harveys seem immune by association? Steve's statements stay carefully polished, the family's posts look flawless, and Lori keeps floating through the spotlight like none of this reaches her.
But if even half these whispers are true, the Harvey silence might be the biggest performance of all.
And what's really going to be interesting is the parade of celebrities who we expect to be mentioned and or called into that courtroom. You know, people who we hadn't heard about prior, like Mike Myers, Austin Powers, Mike Myers. Why is he getting called? Why is he on the witness list? That'll be fascinating. And then, of course, there are the no-name, quote unquote, women who are going to have to find every ounce of courage they have.
The way Lori flipped her image overnight, the way Steve keeps smiling in interviews like none of this even brushes past him, the way Diddy's lawyers wave off every allegation as a media circus, the same so-called circus that now includes over 100 accusers, former employees, artists, assistants, all saying they saw way too much, and yet none of them name Lori or Michael outright. Almost like that file is sealed under a different code name, almost like the real chapter hasn't even been opened yet. And maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe this whole saga, the breakup, the tape, the timing, was never just about romance. It was about control. Diddy controlled Cassie through fear, Lori through silence, and Michael through humiliation. And standing right in the middle of it all is the Harvey family, flawless on the surface, possibly tangled underneath. If Michael ever speaks, if even a single clip leaks from that so-called archive, it won't just ruin reputations, it will expose how Hollywood's power couples are built on traded secrets and quiet settlements. So here we are watching the smoke get thicker, waiting to see who cracks first. Because when those files finally surface, and make no mistake, they will, what happens to the people who smiled their way through it? What happens when the image finally fractures? We're all waiting for the moment the truth slips through the seams. Until then, keep your eyes open and your ears sharp, because this story is far from over, not even close. Ask yourself this: what would you do if you were sitting on proof that could burn an empire? Sit with that, and we'll see you in the next one.